Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, let me begin by making one thing absolutely clear. On this side of the House, we do not oppose reconstruction. We do not oppose resilience. And we certainly do not oppose urgent action for the people of Westmoreland, St. Elizabeth, Hanover, St. James, Trelawney, and all the other parishes that are recovering from Hurricane Melissa. What we oppose firmly, responsibly, and unapologetically is construction without safeguards. Because, Madam Speaker, history teaches us that when large sums of money, emergency powers, and weak oversight converge, the result is not efficiency, it is risk. Risk of nepotism, cronyism, victimization, maladministration, and rampant corruption. The core problem, Madam Speaker, is a gap between promise and law. Madam Speaker, the Prime Minister delivered his presentation, and in his presentation he spoke about transparency, accountability, independent oversight, and national unity. But this House is not voting on a speech. We are voting on a law. And when we examine the law, the bill before us, we see a troubling pattern. Many of the safeguards described in the Prime Minister's presentation are not in the bill. So, Madam Speaker, because I realize that there are issues about the presentation and the bill, I decided to examine both carefully. And in looking at it, I went to the Memorandum of Objects and Reasons, because we are being asked to just follow some things blindly. And I am not willing to do so, because I have seen persons oppose even those things which are not disputable. For instance, I am happy today to read the Memorandum of Objects and Reasons to see that we have finally decided that the hurricane actually made landfall in New Hope in Westmoreland. It took us months to agree that Westmoreland was where the hurricane made landfall. Months. Several reports said that it made landfall in Black River, which then affected how resources were mobilized. There are several records to show.
On a point of order.
Several records to show.
No, listen. On a point of order.
Several reports.
The member is misleading the House. There was no official report emanating from any authorized agency of government that indicated that the hurricane made landfall outside of New Hope. The member is misleading the House to give the impression, as he has said, that a wrong pronouncement was made and the resources followed suit. That is incorrect, and the member should withdraw.
Madam Speaker, several persons. I can make my presentation today, and there is nobody in here that can tell me that I can't make my presentation. So, look here. Don't start. Don't start with that. Don't start with that. You know, Madam Speaker, point of order about what? The same thing that he said?
Madam Speaker, we can't move on without addressing this point. He said, we said, which suggested that that we can send for the answer. He said, we said many times that the hurricane made landfall, and went on to say, we said the hurricane made landfall in Black River. That was never said, because it's just factually inaccurate. So the member can continue, but he cannot mislead the House on the point.
Madam Speaker, the memorandum of objects and reasons said that the hurricane traversed the island, resulting in catastrophic loss and damage to lives, livelihood, economic, social, cultural, and environmental systems. It went on to say that the hurricane damage is estimated at 12.2 billion US dollars. Now, a JIS article in November of 2025 said that redwellings, we had damage to 156,000, and that 24,000 of them were totally lost. I have looked throughout this bill, Madam Speaker, about reconstruction, and I am yet to find the section that speaks about the reconstruction of the 156,000 houses that were damaged and the 24,000 that were destroyed. Significant housing loss. We came here and the Minister of Energy made a point that we needed to mobilize resources to get resources to JPS so that we could have electricity returned to the residents by the end of February. Today is the 28th of April 2026, and over 2,500 residents in Eastern Westmoreland are still without electricity.
Madam Speaker, the member is misleading the House. If you look at Hansard as to what I said, February 28th, save and accept for those areas that had specific challenges. He failed to add that. And I can say, Madam Speaker, I can say that as of today, we're at 99.6% with under 2,000 people still without electricity to be done in the month of April to May. So, if you're going to quote me properly, please.
You know, Madam Speaker, I'm not here to pick a fight with the Minister of Energy. I'm not. No, I'm not. Madam Speaker, when you say 99.6% of the country has been restored, the report that I got a week ago, and the minister said at a press conference a week ago, that there were approximately 3,000 residents without electricity, and that 2,561 of them are from Westmoreland. The report from the CEO of JPS is that 2,561 residents from Eastern Westmoreland are without electricity. So, I don't understand how that is becoming a controversial matter. The hurricane made landfall in the constituency, devastated the constituency, and we have seen no priority attention in there to get back electricity to this country. And when we have this bill, I am taking this bill.
Madam Speaker, there can only be one minister of energy at a time.
Members,
And that
Minister,
happens to be
Minister,
me
hold on. I
in this
cannot hear
situation.
you at all. Members. Go ahead, Minister. I could not hear a word.
Madam Speaker, there can only be one minister of energy at a time. And it so happens that that happens to be me at this particular moment. I am going to read from a report of the 26th, to show that he's misleading the House. He's misleading the House. As of today's date, it is 99.71% restoration. Westmoreland is at 94% with 1,937 persons still without electricity. And in St. Elizabeth, 80. This is a report that I got hours ago today from the Jamaica Public Service. So you can't say that the managing director of JPS giving you a different report than he's giving me. You are wrong, and you must admit it and stop misleading the House.
Madam Speaker, am I going to be allowed to make my presentation?
Members, if a point of order is raised and the person who is on their feet debating wish to respond to the point of order, I'm going to, hold on, no, you're missing the point, member, and I won't name you. It is for the benefit of the person who is on their feet so they don't lose time. So member from Westmoreland East and others who will speak after, when a point of order is raised, if you would like to respond to it, please signal, because that way your time does not continue to run. I do not want you to lose time in the debate. If you are not responding to the point of order, then your presentation continues.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to be abundantly clear. The report that I got from the CEO just over a week ago stated that you have 2,561 customers in eastern Westmoreland that are without electricity. That is the report that was given. If you simply go to Google and type in VAS electricity 2,561, it will come up. Now, the point I am making, Madam Speaker, is that I want to support this bill because the people in the constituency have been devastated. But I want to see in this bill the reconstruction for the people in eastern Westmoreland. The small business operators whose businesses were built in the same way that their houses were built also lost their businesses. The small farmers down there, the shopkeepers who need electricity to refrigerate their items, they don't have it. And I am not seeing that in this bill, and that is what I want to see in there. How it is that we are going to impact on the small people in eastern Westmoreland who are suffering. Today being April 28th is exactly 6 months since the passage of the hurricane. And we still have these persons without the basic commodity. You know, Madam Speaker, I came today, I came prepared because I knew this was going to happen. I came with my Bible, I came with my Bible. I knew this was going to happen. I knew it was going to happen. I came prepared because I knew it was going to happen. And I want to turn it, Madam Speaker. Proverbs 1 verse 10, Madam Speaker. My son, if sinners entice you, do not consent. I am not consenting today to the disruption that is coming from over there. No consent today. No. Madam Speaker, the priority program of the government to deal with the housing situation is the roofs program. The roofs program, Madam Speaker, has left a lot of persons without receiving any assistance. But I'm not even going there yet, Madam Speaker. I'm talking about those who have received something. First thing is that if we're talking about reconstruction and resilience, how is it that somebody would have lost their entire home, which is what severe represents in the roof program, and the allocation is $500,000? Who can rebuild a house with just $500,000? Who can rebuild a resilient house with just $500,000? There is absolutely nothing that speaks to that in this. And members whose constituencies were not affected can say whatever they want to say. When you travel across eastern Westmoreland and the parish of Westmoreland, several homes still have tarpaulin on them. Several homes still have tarpaulin on them. Right? Now, Madam Speaker, up to this morning, I got a call up to this morning. An individual who received
Members.
restaurant.
Minister, before you make your point of order, members, Deputy Speaker, members, I am not going to interrupt. I am not going to interrupt unless I am asked for the protection by the member. I will allow you to continue your debate. So where a member needs my intervention in today's debate, you ask for it. No, that's what I am definitely doing, member. No, not at all. Especially the member who doesn't need my protection. Members, in addition, let me help you with appreciating what happens for the general public. For the general public, the members who are seated behind the presenter who are shouting in the mic, you actually disturb their presentation, particularly in respect of the public listening because of how the mic system operates, far more than persons who are further away. So, just for our understanding, when the noise comes from both sides of the house, and particularly when it comes from close to the person presenting, you significantly disturb the presentation of the member closest to you. Now, there is a point of order being raised. Minister Charles, are you member? Point of order.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I was trying my best to listen to the full sentence from the member, but as
I'm not hearing you well. You have to project because
I'm saying I was trying my best to listen before I call for the point of order to see if the sentence in completion would have not misguided the country. But when the member gives the impression that the roofs program was meant to provide all or rebuild all, it will mislead the country. Allow me. And why I say so, why I'm saying so,
Speaker, is when you say that that cannot rebuild, you will give somebody who's listening the impression that that was the intention of the government when we have other programs under the shelter recovery that provide full solutions, right? So the roofs program is never meant to be a full solution. There are other elements of the shelter recovery program that do so. It's very important then that the member not mislead the country with his utterances. Thank you, please.
Madam Speaker.
Would you be so kind to turn your mic back on? Once you have intervened, please turn your mic off. I'm trying not to turn off the mic of the presenter.
Madam Speaker, I'll move on. The point I am making, and I am being very clear about the point that I'm making. If the roofs program was not intended to address the 156,000 persons that had damages to their dwelling, or the 24,000 that have total loss, then it would mean that those people, their reconstruction would need to be in this bill. And that is the point that I'm making, that if we are discussing reconstruction and resilience, then the housing damage that was suffered, which is a significant percentage of the 12.2 billion US dollars, then that must get priority attention in the bill that is on reconstruction. No, I got a call today, Madam Speaker, and the individual was complaining that they haven't gotten anything from roofs. And so I checked with the ministry. And when I checked, the ministry said that the person already benefited from a program through TEF. So I checked as to how much did the person benefit from TEF. The person got $100,000 worth of material. And based on that, the person is ineligible to benefit from the roofs program. Which means this individual who suffered total loss to their dwelling and under the roofs program would have qualified for $500,000 because they got $100,000 a tourism worker. They now become ineligible to benefit from the roofs program. That is something that must be addressed.
Yes. Yes.
There is actually a difference between politics and governance, Madam Speaker. When I'm on the political platform, I am one of the most strident politicians you will find, making my political point. But when I'm in here, Madam Speaker, I'm talking about the governance and how the lives of the people that I represent are being affected. Now, Madam Speaker, this contradiction between the PM's presentation and the bill is seen in several places. Oversight is promised, but is not legislated. We were told that there would be an independent oversight body, JAMRAC, modeled after EPOC. We were told it will provide public accountability, independent scrutiny, and even opposition representation. But, Madam Speaker, JAMRAC is not in the bill. The PM claims robust independent oversight, but the bill does not create it. There is no statutory body with the appropriate governance structure. And if you look at the PM's presentation, the PM took the opportunity to point out some examples. He said that after the Great East Japan earthquake of 2011, Japan established a dedicated reconstruction agency. What he did not tell us is that it had a board. He then went on to speak about Dominica established the Climate Resilient Execution Agency, CREED. What he didn't tell us was that it had a board. Then he went on to speak about in Jamaica, former Prime Minister Percival James Patterson, the great man from Eastern Westmoreland, established the Office of National Reconstruction after Hurricane Ivan. When he did so, Madam Speaker, he wanted a non-political individual to chair the committee. And he decided that he was going to second someone from the EOJ. And so he seconded none other than Danville Walker, who ended up not being non-political after all, because he contested the elections in central Manchester. But he chaired it. There was no overreach. From the PNP, from the JP, from NGOs, from private sector, and they had to get approval for the projects that they were doing. So to just give the examples without speaking of the governance framework that was behind those examples is misleading. Now, there is no legal requirement for independent monitoring, no reporting schedule, no obligation to publish oversight reports. Instead, what the bill says, it says that the minister may give direction to the authority, and the authority shall comply. Madam Speaker, that is not independent oversight. That is executive control. As the House is being asked to rely on executive assurances instead of legislative safeguards, you cannot ask Parliament to pass hard powers into statute and accept the soft safeguards on trust. That's right. There is a concentration of power in the executive. Madam Speaker, let us examine the structure being created under this bill. The PM appoints the CEO. The minister determines the CEO terms, remunerations, and conditions. The minister can issue binding direction. The cabinet determines which projects proceed. The authority cannot implement plans without cabinet approval. And critically, there is no governing board. Now, the Prime Minister said this creates clear accountability. But, Madam Speaker, clear accountability without independent oversight is not accountability. It is concentration of power. It is heavy ministerial and cabinet control over appointment, approvals, direction, project flow. What the government calls streamlined accountability may in practice become streamlined political control. Reprocurement. This is possibly the most serious omission. Madam Speaker, let us turn to procurement, the single most sensitive area in any reconstruction program. The Prime Minister himself admitted that the procurement framework is not in the bill and will instead be created by ministerial order. This is the Prime Minister. On the specific question of procurement, the procurement framework for NARA is not incorporated in the bill itself. It is the government's intention that the Minister of Finance will issue an order under Section 3, Subsection 3 of the Public Procurement Act 2015, exempting NARA from the standard procurement regime and specifying the particular terms and conditions that will apply to NARA's procurement activities. End of quote. Madam Speaker, let us pause right there. Parliament is being asked to create the authority, grant it power to spend billions, allow it to procure goods, works, and services without knowing the procurement rules that will govern those contracts. No tendering principles, no publication requirement, no conflict of interest provision, no mandatory disclosure framework for awards. This is backwards. The rules must come before the power, not after. As a member from South Manchester said, the House should not approve a blank check without guardrails. Extra, yes, you don't hear the quotation. You don't hear the quotation. There are extraordinary powers to override existing laws. Madam Speaker, the bill will not merely coordinate, it overrides. It allows the authority to direct agencies on how to process approvals, impose deadlines, require concurrent approvals, proceed without waiting on other approvals, and even modify or make exception to zoning requirements. And if agencies resist, the authority can apply for a step-in order, where the minister effectively grants the approval himself with full legal effect. Madam Speaker, speed is necessary, but speed must not become a mechanism to bypass planning authorities and professional judgment, also a process that remains internal to the executive. There are transparency claims versus the legal reality. Madam Speaker, we were told this authority will operate with unprecedented transparency. But what does the bill actually require? 1, a register of projects, annual report to the minister. And at the same time, in section 14, it creates a broad secrecy obligation with criminal penalties for disclosure. There is no requirement to publish procurement awards, no requirement to publish contracts, no requirement to publish step-in decisions, expert advice summaries, project amendments, directive notices, no requirement to publish performance dashboard. Madam Speaker, a registry is not transparency, member from St. Andrew North Central. And secrecy, backed by criminal sanction, is not the same as accountability. The FAST program, Madam Speaker, that is narrowly tailored disaster recovery is a broad investment fast-track regime. We must ask, is this a reconstruction bill or a parallel development framework with extraordinary executive powers? Madam Speaker, we are not here to block progress. We are here to strengthen the law so that progress is sustainable, credible, and fair. Statutory oversight. JAMRAC should be established in the Act, define its composition and publications duties, guarantee opposition participation, and require semi-annual public reports. The procurement safeguards in law. You need to insert procurement principles, transparency, competitive bidding, value for money, conflict of interest rules, and require publication of all major contracts. With transparency, mandatory provision of project list and update, procurement awards, directive issues, step-in orders, application and orders, performance metrics. All of that. The parliamentary oversight. There should be mandatory semi-annual reports to Parliament, not only reports to the minister. And he should. In closing, Madam Speaker, the bill is being presented as a vehicle for national transformation, and it may very well be, but transformation must be built on trust anchored in law, not trust resting on promises. The country needs speed, yes, but the country needs safeguards. If JAMRAC is essential, put it in the bill. If transparency is essential, put it in the bill. If procurement integrity is essential, put it in the bill. If those measures are truly essential, they should be written into the legislation before Parliament passes it. Madam Speaker, we support reconstruction. We support urgency, but we do not support unchecked power. We do not support rebuilding on a weak governance foundation. Let us not just build faster, but better, fairer, and with safeguards worthy of the Jamaican people.